Hey, what is up, YouTube? What is up, Christianology family? So we have pro-Hamas versus pro-Israel supporters on Piers Morgan. We're gonna react to it. It said on the what do you call it? The Hamas person got roasted, bro. So let's get straight to it. Hit the subscribe button if you enjoy the content. Let's get straight to it, baby. Straight to it, man.
That's occurred in the Gaza Strip, according to the UN, will take 80 years to rebuild without conditions. So at this point, Israel needs to be stopped before they continue this horrific onslaught, Piers.
Mossab, I'll get you to respond to what Abby just said, but just your response to that interview with an Israeli government spokesman, because I got to say, I found that pretty stunning that he would be so certain how many Hamas terrorists the IDF have killed, but admit he had no idea how many civilians have been killed, given that it's the deaths of the civilians that is getting Israel so much unpopular reaction around the world.
Because we cannot send Israelis to Rafah and to dangerous zones to collect statistics and count the numbers. It's a very dangerous zone. Israel is looking from the outside. And also, who said that Israel is only responsible for the killing of Gazans? Mostly Hamas responsible. First of all, for taking human shields. Second, their booby traps. How could you differentiate the death that it was caused by an airstrike or by a Hamas death trap? How do we know the difference?
Well, yeah, but
in
the
war,
point I would make,
people
though,
die.
Yeah,
listen to me. All this moral, Pierce. No, listen to me. All this dilemma. You're going with your whatever morality. This is war. In war, people die. You need to wake up to this reality, accept it. Stop this denial. We are in the face of savages who hijacked an entire society. This is a very difficult war. No other army can do the job, and I'm not willing to risk thousands of lives of foot soldiers to deal with this type of savages who hijacked the entire society. 100,000 people could have died. Israel is doing everything they could. Don't reduce it to the point. Do you have statistics? Who cares?
Well, actually,
Egypt,
no, I think you're missing my point.
Authority,
yeah, Mossad.
Jordan,
all right.
The Arab world don't want Hamas at whatever cost.
Mossad.
Whatever it costs, we want to remove Hamas from power.
Okay, I understand that. That's a different question. My point is why...
Do you?
Well, why does... My question is this for you. Why is it that, if, as you say, Israel has no way of working out who's being killed here, and I know all about war... My brother served in wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. My brother-in-law served in wars. My grandfather served in wars. My uncle served in wars. I don't need a lecture about what warfare is, but I do find it surprising that Israel's official spokesman, months and months into this war, is able to tell me immediately how many Hamas terrorists have been killed by Israeli forces, but admits he hasn't got a clue how many civilians have been killed. And I'm sorry, I think most viewers will find that stunning. You say Israel's no way of checking, but they seem to have a way of checking how many Hamas they're killing, Mossad.
Listen, it's Israel's responsibility to know the death of their own citizens. This is their responsibility. I think your question was absurd. This is why you put him on the spot. He was not prepared for it.
I didn't put him on the spot.
But this is not going to change the reality on the ground. The reality on the ground, Hamas must go. The only side want Hamas to stay is the Iranian Ayatollah, and for some stupid reason, Karen in America wants Hamas to stay. But the Arab world, let me tell you something, Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the majority of the Arab world, we are Arabs. I am Arab. We are not Palestinians. We don't want Hamas. We don't want Islam. We want Islamists out of power.
Okay.
It's as simple as that.
All right.
They have been killing Jewish and Arab children.
Right.
This is not your game. This is not her game. It's not about statistics.
Well, it's not a game.
It's about doing the correct thing of removing Hamas from power.
Mossad,
end of the story.
Let me interrupt, because you quoted Saudi Arabia in your rant there. So let me read you a statement from the Saudi Foreign Ministry. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs expresses the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's warning of the dangers of the Israeli occupation forces targeting the city of Rafah as part of its systematic bloody campaign to storm all areas of Gaza Strip and displace its residents towards the unknown in light of a lack of safe zones after the massive destruction caused by the Israeli war machine. The ministry affirms the kingdom's categorical rejection of the occupation forces' continued blatant violations of international resolutions, calling for the cessation of these massacres and their violation of international law and international humanitarian law without deterrence, which exacerbates the humanitarian crisis and limits international peace efforts. The ministry renewed the kingdom's demand for the international community to intervene immediately to stop the genocide carried out by occupation forces against defenseless civilians in the occupied Palestinian territories. So when you say all Arabs agree with you, Mossab, actually they don't. That is the Saudi Foreign Ministry saying they want it to stop right now.
As we speak, the intelligence services of the Arab world, all of them, in a joint operation room with Israel to rid of Hamas. I don't care about some politician trying to make a political statement. It's false. The reality on the ground, we don't want Hamas. We don't want Islamists. We don't want this anarchy, this revolution without a moral compass. We don't want to globalize it. We don't want to bring it to the United States. The game is over. Hamas is out, and their death warranty has been issued. It's a finished job.
All right,
and we are going into Rafah, and we are going to eliminate every last one of them.
Let me bring in Abby. Abby, you've been listening to this. I mean, fundamentally, I understand why Israel and Israelis want to eliminate Hamas completely, because this is a terror group who are wedded to the eradication of Israel and everybody in it. In fact, they have reiterated publicly, through their official spokesman, a desire to commit as many October the 7th as they can. So I completely understand why Israel wants to get rid of these terrorists. The question is, how do they do that without killing many, many more civilians? And as we saw from the Saudi statement, there are many Arab countries now in the region increasingly concerned that if there is a full attack on Rafah, which has 1.5 million people, a lot of civilians are going to die.
Right, and you know, to your point before, I think the death toll is actually vastly undercounted, considering how we have not even began to excavate the bodies under the rubble. So I would say that the death toll is a vast undercount. As far as Mossab's point about Hamas, I think that, you know, Mossab is the Palestinian who hates Palestinians. He's developed a lucrative career being able to lie about basic facts about this conflict. And so when he says Palestinians or Hamas, what he really means is all Arabs and all Muslims. In fact, I've seen that plain as day in his social media and talks. He thinks that all Muslims are terrorists. And so, I mean, this is credited to the point that he is actually credited to jailing what is called the Mandela, the Palestinian Mandela. Marwan Barghouti. This is a guy who he put in prison 20 years ago, who was marching side by side with Israeli peace activists denouncing Hamas killing civilians. So again, I mean, when we're looking at someone who's worked for Israeli intelligence, who spouts the same rhetoric as Israelis, who say Hamas, but what they really mean is all Palestinians, I mean, it's really hard to debate someone on the fundamental reality and the principles of, you know, the facts of this conflict. Now, to your point, Piers, about what should they do about Hamas, I reject the premise of Israel's genocide. I'm not going to sit here and say, yes, Hamas is a terrorist organization and they need to be eradicated. Of course, that's not true. And I think that we can both agree.
What do you mean that's not
it's
true?
An impossible task. It's not true that something needs to be done about Hamas. I don't agree with that framework and the parameters of that debate.
Why?
Because Israel's been committing ethnic cleansing and genocidal policies against the Palestinians for 70
But Hamas literally has a charter. Yeah, but Abby, hang on. Hamas literally has a stated charter of the elimination of Israel. That is the purest personification of a publicly stated policy of genocide
that's not
I can
true,
imagine.
That is true. That's what they're protesting for.
The revised charter says that they actually recognize the existence of the Israeli state among 1967 borders. That's the revised charter, and they actually make a political differentiation between Zionism and Judaism.
So
that's
when
the
their
actual
official
charter
spokesman,
so you keep pointing to a random spokesperson. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's not random. He's the official spokesman for Hamas, and he said literally 2 weeks after October the 7th, we are going to do this again and again and again. That is an existential genocidal threat to the existence of everyone in Israel. Clearly. said publicly on camera. I mean, he's brazen about it.
Look, I think that when you're comparing one guy and his statement to literally
He's the official
dozens
spokesman,
of
Abby.
genocidal statements. Okay, but look at the official spokespeople of Israel, Piers, and look at the
I just
actual
had one
genocide
on.
they're committing. You cannot compare the two. It's a complete false equivalency. One guy is saying one thing, the other dozens of Israeli ministers and cabinet officials and public media personas on TV are saying one thing and actually doing it on the ground.
You would allow
We're
Hamas to
actually
stay in power?
on the ground. It's not up to me, Piers. Hamas is
What's your
representative
opinion?
of a large
You've been
sector.
expressing many.
Okay,
What's your
but here's the thing.
opinion?
What's your opinion?
Marwan Barghouti is the most popular unifying figure in Palestinian society. He would resoundingly win in an election against Hamas. So what this is about, this isn't about Hamas. This is about eliminating every faction
all
of
about
Palestinian
Hamas.
resistance, peaceful or not. It is not about Hamas. Of
It's
course
all
it's not
about
about
what
Hamas.
Hamas did.
Because
on
Hamas
October the
started
7th.
this thing, October 7th. They started this.
But Piers, I think we both know it's not. Because what is the military occupation founded upon? When did Hamas come into power? We know that this isn't just about Hamas. What was Israel doing in the West Bank the year prior to October 7th? They killed 500 Palestinians, 80 children. This is ethnic cleansing. This is a military occupation. As long as you have these policies in place, you will never get to the root of the violence, Piers.
All right, Mossab, there was an allegation there that you think all Muslims are terrorists. What's your response to what Abby Martin said?
Well, you know, this is Abi's desperate attempt to discredit me. I'm a man of the field. I fought against Hamas as part of legitimate intelligence organization, against savage group that were targeting civilians in suicide bombing attacks, waves of suicide bombing attacks that they killed people indiscriminately. So Abby today want me for some reason to apologize for saving a human life because my truth challenges her convenient truth. Abby does not have the authority. She's just a self-appointed low-grade journalist. How can you be a journalist and you call this a genocide, ethnic cleansing? And she just keep repeating ethnic cleansing, genocide, colonialism, etc. None of it is real, including Palestine. It's only in your head. None of it is existential. Palestine was never born. How can you free it? It was never there. It's just a colonial entity, and some people choose to make it into a national identity. And this parrot has been just repeating Hamas propaganda. Marwan Barghouti that she's talking about him, she never met him. I knew Marwan before he got to power. He's a criminal. He killed 5 people. He has blood on his hands. He cheated on his wife. He has a secret son that he never revealed it to the public. Of course, I can criticize him, and I can criticize all the criminals that I know personally.
Why is she making that face? Do you know this? Do you know this? You don't know this. You live in, I don't know where she's from though, but she probably live in America. She sounds American. You live in America. This man used to live in Palestine. You used to know all these guys that you're mentioning that you just read on the internet about. He actually knows these people. He used to work with these people. So if he's telling you these people are murderers, they cheat on their wife, they have kids, bastard kids, how would you know that? You just Googling. Some things are not on the Google. Fake journalist. Some journalists actually have to go to Palestine and ask these people, are what this man is saying true? Or what the things this man is saying true? But you're not a journalist. You just a propaganda person. Oh, Palestine is cool now. It's like Black Lives Matter. I'm sure Black Lives Matter, she was protesting as well. Now it's Palestine, she want to protest as well.
She's been there only for a visit, and maybe she had some falafel sandwich, you know, and she really was blown away of the Palestinian experience. There is no such a thing as Palestine. It's about time to retire, find a different job. You're not a journalist. You don't qualify even to be a mother.
Wow. Abby.
Woo! Damn, boy. Yo, the man called her a fake mother. Whoa. Things getting intense. It's getting intense.
Saab, you know, it's usually a public figure. If they were caught lying about half the things that they said, they would be completely discredited and never allowed airtime. You are spewing such ahistorical anti-Arab bigotry that not even the fringe of Israeli society would agree with you. I mean, not even Israeli historians agree.
I'm not anti-Arab. I am Arab. I am Arab. This is my ethnicity. Islam is just
anti-Muslim bigotry.
I am not a Muslim.
Mazhab.
We are Arabs.
Mazhab. Okay, then anti-Muslim bigotry, which is frankly appalling, considering that there's 1 billion people on the planet who would be characterized as you as, extremists who need to be used force against, according to you. But Mossab, not even Israeli historians would agree with the fact that you claim that there's no military occupation in the West Bank, that there's no apartheid state. Israelis at least admit, yes, those things exist, but here's why they're necessary and justified. They don't even agree with you. You're so fringe that I don't even know where you're coming from. I mean, so again, if we can't even agree with the basic facts of the conflict and the reality in front of our eyes, I don't know how we can really even discuss this.
What's that?
Yeah, because you don't qualify.
Well, I think
It's
the
as
political
simple as that.
credentials. Listen,
Well,
everyone's entitled to an
listen,
opinion.
Here's best case scenario, if there is an occupation, it's between Israel and Jordan, or it's between Israel and Egypt, because it was not an occupation of a country called Palestine. There was never Palestine in history. This is not an absurd statement. It's reality. Palestine never existed. It was not a country. It was not a nation. It's not an ethnic group. We are Arabs. We are the Arabs of Judea and Samaria. And when I was born, like millions of Palestinians, we had Jordanian birth certificate. The people of Gaza were Egyptian with Egyptian birth certificate. There was no Palestine. Yasser Arafat created this entity, and everybody believed him. And this lie must die. This is why I don't like what Abby and her likes doing by trying to delegitimize Israel. She's trying to discredit me. Who gave you the authority? How dare you?
You are a
I'm a son
spy.
of that region.
You're
I'm
a spy
child of
for
that
Israeli
conflict.
intelligence,
You don't-
Mossab.
It is not funny. It's not funny. Your tale,
It's
your
not
false
funny at
narrative
all.
need to
It's-
stop because
it's
you
not
are
funny at all,
creating chaos.
Mossab.
Listen, Abby, you are bringing
Mossab, you're
chaos to the
very-
United States and you will be held accountable. You are just a
Okay.
criminal like them.
Sure. Okay, Mossab, you can't be taken seriously, and you're not legitimate because you are literally, you have
I
worked
don't
for
care
Israeli
if you take me
intelligence to out
seriously
your
or
own
not.
people. But listen,
Sooner
okay, but
or
Mossab,
later
you
you
can't discredit
realize-
my reality as well. You can't discredit my reality as well. I was in the West Bank. I had assault rifles
Then
pointed at my head from a 17-year-old
Don't dare
American
you try
from
to
Palo
discredit me.
Alto. That's an occupation.
You are in my domain
Mossab.
right
That's
now.
a military occupation.
Okay, you are in my domain. When you come to my domain, you have to pay respect. You have to respect all the effort that I put to save human lives, and you cannot reduce that into some propaganda because
why
it's
on
not.
earth would I
It's not
respect you
about
for
Israel.
putting
It's
the
about
leader of Fatah, Mossab? You put the most unifying, popular Palestinian figure. You are credited to putting him in prison. This is someone who would win an election against Hamas. He is a peace activist. He was fighting for a two-state solution. This isn't about Hamas, and you know it. This is about you shutting down, tamping down on all factions of Palestinian society. And let's be clear, what is Palestine supposed to do? What are Palestinians supposed to do when in 2018, thousands of Palestinians in Gaza marched peacefully to this fortified perimeter fence that Israeli snipers have authorized themselves to shoot, to kill, and that's exactly what they did. They massacred over 200 peaceful demonstrators, medics, press, journalists, clearly marked press, disabled people in wheelchairs, and children. These are all violations of international law in the Geneva Convention. Israeli snipers perched up behind sand dunes picked people off one by one in a methodical slaughter over the course of several months. That's when Palestinians tried to peacefully protest. So I think the question should be, what should Palestinians do? Because they're not even allowed to advocate for their legal rights. They're not even allowed to raise up a Palestinian flag. I visited a place called Sebastia in the occupied West Bank, and Palestinians were shot and in the hospital for simply erecting a Palestinian flag on a hilltop several days prior. This is the brutal reality of military occupation in the West Bank, Mossab. I mean, I want the violence to end. I empathize with the victims of both sides of this. And that's why I want to get to the root of the conflict. Yes, I don't go out there and say Jews can't be trusted like you say about Muslims. I empathize with all civilian life. I believe and cherish the sanctity of human life. And that's why I want to get to the root of why violence occurs, Mossab. And
let me ask Mossab a question. Do you agree with the principle that Palestinians should be entitled to exactly the same human rights as Israelis?
Listen, the suffering of the Arabians, again, stop calling them Palestinians. They are not Palestinians. We are Arabs. We are the Arabs of Judea and Samaria. And Israel and the Jewish people have
Palestinians
no problem
call themselves
since the beginning of their state. Well, you gave them that name. You forced the international community and the rest of the world.
All right, well, let me rephrase the question. Should
the
people who live in Gaza and on the West Bank, should they be entitled to the same human rights as Israelis?
If they have equal responsibility as the decent citizens of the State of Israel, that includes Arabs, Jews, Christians, and all other citizens of the State of Israel, then yes, they have equal rights. But if they are not taking their responsibility, if they are using violence, sending suicide bombers, and killing babies, kidnapping a 1-year-old, you know, how do you answer to the mother and to the mothers of the hostages and all those who got killed on October 7. You know, it's very easy to just try to delegitimize Israel. This is what Abiy and her likes have been trying to do for so long. But they don't have the moral power to say what Hamas did, all the waves of suicide bombing attacks. October 7, that was a genocide. That was a genocide. So stop spreading the false narrative. Now, regarding to the Arabs who live there, they need a decent police force. They need a good economy. They need good education. And if they are able to integrate, then naturally could be a political entity based on their needs. But right now, when she say Palestine, who is? Islamic Jihad, Fatah, Marwan Barghouthi, Ismail Haniyeh, Hamas, Public Front. They are so conflicted. They don't have agenda. They don't have leadership. They don't have legitimacy. This is an anarchy that has been going on for about 70 years. And it's about time for it to stop. Now, to transform, to integrate the society, we must protect the children. And this is a priority number one before we talk about Palestinian state or whatever name you want to give it. That when we have a savage group, Islamists, by the name of Allah.
Right, man. I mean, that man was spitting, bro. Man was spitting.